It's been said by many people that if you increase your grip strength, you'll increase every kind of strength. So if you create a strong grip on something, it sends a powerful signal to your central nervous system that you're in a stable and secure position and therefore able to exert force without risking falling over or dropping something and injuring yourself. This immediately gives you more force, more ability to generate force because you're holding on to something better. What's more is that having a stronger grip might even just allow you to contract your other muscles more powerfully. I heard a really cool example of this where if you try and tense your bicep whilst keeping your arm open and loose, your hand open and loose, you can't generate as much force as if you tense your bicep whilst at the same time clenching your fist. When you contract any muscle, any area at the same time, there's going to be overspill. When you make a fist as hard as you can, it's impossible not to feel your arms tensing, your back tensing. So it seems that just getting a powerful grip will give you awesome power in the gym. So why is this? Well, if we look at something called the homunculus, this is an image that was shown in psychology when we're learning about the motor cortex. This is a kind of creepy looking figure, a horrendous looking man who has these giant hands, giant tongue, giant lips, and basically in this image what those giant features are doing is demonstrating the proportion of brain matter that is dedicated to that part of the body. So we can sense things through our hands in much finer detail. We have much finer motor control in our hands than we do, for instance, at the back of our elbow. You can pinch the back of your elbow, you don't even feel it. So you need much larger representations in the brain and the motor cortex for your hands than you do for other parts of your body. And it thus follows that you should spend a decent amount of time training your hands and your grip strength. And if you can strengthen your connection, your mind-muscle connection with your grip, then perhaps you'll also be strengthening your mind-muscle connection throughout your entire body.
Daniel's search is taking him to India to meet a man who can climb anything at lightning speed.
Even more exciting is a guy called Jyothi Raj. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He was on Stanley's Superhumans and he's called the real monkey man. And the reason for this is because he can climb like a monkey. He apparently observed monkeys climbing and wanted to learn to climb like them. And he moves in this incredible, inhuman way. He spins around upside down. He makes incredible leaps, fantastic dynos, and to the point where it appears superhuman. So he was inspected by Stan Lee's team and they ran some tests on the way he moved and they found that his movements were far more energy efficient and that he really did move differently from other people. And when they asked him what the secret to this ability was, he said that it was that he trained his fingers and his grips. That's what he observed in the monkeys, the fact that they had these powerful fingers, these powerful grips, and that's what he needed to train in order to pull off this superhuman feat. And it makes sense as well that you'd move in a more efficient way once you know how important your grip and your fingers are for your central nervous system.
Can I see your hands? Wow. Man, they're tough as a rock. Ow! That's crazy.
You'll notice the power is not in the palm, hand or wrist area. The technique relies on focusing my entire strength and body weight to the tips of my fingers.
Training big forearms is also awesome for any bodybuilders, anyone who wants to look bigger and stronger, because not only is this one of the only muscle groups that people can see when you're clothed, so it looks awesome if you've got bulging forearms sticking out of a short sleeve shirt, but at the same time it'll also build up that vascularity. If you used your hands and your forearms more, then you need more blood and oxygen there, and so this is a great way to get those really veiny forearms just like Stallone, which looks awesome in my opinion, not to everyone's tastes. Some people think it's gross, but I think it's awesome. So how exactly do you go about training your grip strength? Well, it actually comes down to a lot of different things because it's not just one muscle, of course, that's responsible for your grip. It's the action of several all working together. So you have your forearm flexors and your forearm extensors. So the extensor moves your hand this way, your wrist this way, and the flexor moves it that way. And this also acts on your fingers via tendons. Then on top of that, you have your pronator teres, it's not teres, it's mine, and your supinator, and that's for twisting your arm in and out. Then on top of that, you have the extrinsic muscles of your hand, and these extrinsic muscles once again include flexors and extensors, and these are what more specifically move the fingers. So there's a whole lot of different things you need to focus on if you want to build as much strength in your grip and in your forearms as possible. The abductor pollicis longus, meanwhile, is the muscle that's used to move your thumb around, and that also helps you to move your hand from side to side, along with the supinator and the pronator. And then on top of that, you have the brachioradialis and the aconius muscle. These are by the elbow, they're at the top of the forearm and therefore bending at the elbow back and forth. So yeah, there's a lot of different muscles in the forearms. So to start with, let's take a look at how you train your forearm flexors and extensors, which will not only improve our grip, but also improve the size and the muscularity of our forearms. So one of the few exercises that people actually do already for their forearm training is the wrist curl. And you can either do this with a supinated or a pronated grip. And all you're going to do is hold on to the dumbbell. It should be very light, and then you're going to curl it using just your wrist. So you want to isolate the movement in the upper arm. You can rest it on a bench, or you can rest it on your knee, or just hold it in place. And then you're just going to literally move the hand up and down like so, using that light dumbbell. And obviously which way round you hold the dumbbell and which grip you use, that's going to affect whether you're training the flexors or the extensors. So you want to do both. That's a kind of boring exercise, but it's a really good one, because if you do that at the start of a workout before, say, you do some chin-ups or something, then your forearms feel swollen and pumped and everything else becomes more difficult on your grip. So that's quite a good way of doing it. Or a more fun way of training your flexors and your extensors is to do pull-up bar wrist curls. And this is simply hanging from a pull-up bar and then curling your wrists, again using either an overhand or an underhand grip to train the flexors and the extensors. And then you literally just curl your own body weight up using just your wrists. It's kind of awkward, looks kind of strange, but you can do this at the end of a pull-up or a chin-up routine, and therefore you're not dedicating tons of time just to your forearms, you're just getting in a little bit of extra forearm work there. It's, in general, slightly more fun, slightly easier to do than, you know, going and finding a really light dumbbell and sitting somewhere doing this and losing your pump, I find. If you want to train the pronator and the supinator, then really any exercise using a twist, such as dumbbell curls with a twist or Arnold presses, where you're going from a neutral grip to an overhand grip with your shoulder presses with dumbbells, will train that twisting motion. Unfortunately, these methods aren't perfect because the direction of the gravity, the force is going downwards. There's no resistance against the twisting motion. So if you actually wanted to build that twisting strength optimally, you could either use a cable and just have that resist you as you twist your arm in either direction, or you could drive a nail into a plank of wood. This isn't something I do personally, but if you want to build real twisting power, if you want to optimize for that, then this is something you could do. And it does have some useful real world benefits. All I can think of really at the moment is nipple twisting, but yeah, if you want to really hurt your friends, then get working on that. If you want to train the brachioradialis and the aconius muscle, then apparently hammer curls, anything with a neutral grip, tricep kickbacks are my favorites, dumbbell runners, will train those muscles well. And that's quite a good one. If you get that little bulge by your elbow, it looks quite cool. But of course, the star of the show is going to be the hand muscles, the finger strength. That's what a lot of people really want, that crushing strength. And there's lots of ways you can train this as well, of course. So one obvious way is just to squeeze anything. So that could mean squeezing the dumbbells harder when you're curling, or it could mean squeezing the barbells harder. You can likewise squeeze a tennis ball or pretty much anything. Obviously you get these devices like this, the grip trainers, and they're all right. Obviously anything like this, you're training those extrinsic muscles in the hand. Of course, one that you might already know if you watch my video on old-time strongmen is just to use wider grip barbells. So they're just barbells or dumbbells with larger bars. So you've got to grip onto it to prevent it slipping through your fingers, and that's very difficult to do. And if you don't have a wide barbell or don't want to get one, then you can just try wrapping a towel or something around the bar, and that'll make it thicker for you. Of course, anything that's hard to grip will do this well. So that could mean towel pull-ups, for instance, or it could mean curling a rope, you know, on a cable pulley machine instead of holding onto the nice handles. Even just the actual cable itself, gripping onto that. Climbing ropes is fantastic for your grip. Anything like that will do the job nicely. Holding onto weights in general for long periods of time so that your muscles don't fatigue but your grip starts to is another great way to train your grip. This is why farmers' walks and any kind of loaded carry can be fantastic for your grip. So basically just pick up a really heavy weight and walk with it and try not to let it slip out through your fingers. I've talked about loaded carries on this channel before. They're fantastic for all kinds of things, but they're also really good for your grip. And very similar in terms of what you're actually doing is a dead hang. So dead hang just means hanging from a pull-up bar and keeping your arms straight and just seeing how long you can hold on there for. Another way of doing this is to do the dead hang, but not to use a full closed grip. Instead, you can use just your fingertips, and that'll train your fingers much more. This is where you need to start being careful, because if you're hanging from your fingertips, it can be a lot of hard work on your tendons, and if you tear them, then you're going to be out of action for a long time. I need to be very careful as a freelance writer because my fingers are my livelihood. In rock climbing, there are 3 different positions for your hands when you're doing something like this. They are the open hand, where just the tips of your fingers are holding onto the crag or the bar. There's the half crimp, where just the tops of your fingers are bent, and there's the full crimp, where you've scrunched up and you're getting as much purchase onto that grip as you possibly can. Of course, holding an open hand grip is harder than holding a full crimp, so you can work your way up to it. That's a great way of doing progressions. Like I say, be very careful with this. Another way you can do this, of course, is with a fingerboard. If you're lucky enough to have one in your gym or in your home, this is just a board that's attached to a wall. Likewise, you can use the ridge around the top of your door frame. And if you're really feeling ambitious, you can try hanging from 2 fingers, from 3 fingers. I've seen rock climbers who can do this. It's incredible, but like I say, please work up to it. Be very careful because, yeah, you can really hurt yourself if you're not careful. You don't want to tear the tendons on your fingers. That's nasty. And of course, any form of rock climbing is one of the very best things you can do for your grip strength, because you're placing all of your weight onto your fingers as well as your legs a little bit, but for long periods of time, building up endurance and strength in your hands. And I was a member of the rock climbing club at my university, and some of the best climbers there had forearms like Popeye. They were huge and they could just crush things. They had incredible grip strength. If you want to take this one step further, then one of the most awesome names for a training method that I've heard of is hypergravity bouldering. So bouldering is a form of rock climbing where you don't need a rope and a harness and all that. It's climbing shorter distances with a crash mat underneath. So that's a good way of getting into rock climbing for grip strength if you don't have the time or the money to invest in becoming a proper rock climber. But in hypergravity bouldering, you're doing this whilst adding weight to yourself so that you're climbing using an even heavier body weight. And of course, another way you could practice something similar would be to do weighted pull-ups or weighted dead hangs. And sure, we can call that hypergravity training if you want. I definitely want. Hey Adam, what have you been up to today? Oh, nothing, just the usual, just hypergravity training. Likewise, you can also use these kinds of grips, these open hands, 2 fingers, half crimps, whilst you're doing shrugs, whilst you're doing farmer's walk, of course with a lighter weight, but it's another great way to challenge yourself. You can use this as incidental training just whilst you're going about your business. Carrying lots of shopping, for instance, why not carry the bags from 2 fingers and train your grip at the same time? Likewise, there's lots of other kinds of grips you can use. For instance, I talked about the pinch grip when I was doing my talk on loaded carries, and this basically means you're grabbing 2 weight plates or whatever, and you pinch them together with your hands, and this requires you to use a lot of force, to apply a lot of force with your fingers in order to hold it and carry it, or curl it if you're doing weight plate curls. Again, there's lots of ways you can combine your grip strength training with other kinds of training just to make sure that you're getting it in there. And another way to train your fingers, of course, is with finger push-ups. And this is another one you need to be very careful with, but this is what Jyothi Raj demonstrated when they asked him how he was able to do this amazing climbing. He got on his hands and feet and started doing just 2 finger push-ups or whatever, demonstrating how powerful his fingers were. Bruce Lee, of course, was famous for doing 2 finger push-ups. Again, I can't do 2 finger push-ups. I don't recommend you try it. You have to build up to it. You can do open hand push-ups on just all your fingertips to begin with, and then you can build up by removing fingers. Do 8, do 6, take 1 hand away. Another way to build up to it is to have 1 hand closed and 1 hand on your fingertips. If you can't do fingertip press-ups at all to begin with, that's a good progression to use. And of course, all of those overcoming isometric exercises I've talked about in the past are also fantastic for grip strength. So these are all your things like trying to rip a rope in half, or bend a piece of steel, or rip a frying pan up, or a telephone book, anything where you're trying to push or pull something that won't budge. Grip strength and isometrics go hand in hand, no pun intended, very well. And not only that, but you'll be building the mind-muscle connection greatly. It's great for general central nervous system training, and it'll build the toughness on your skin, your calloused hands, that help to improve your grip because your hands are grippy, and also reduce the pain that you get from doing anything that involves a lot of grip. But all of this stuff will do that, as will doing general powerlifting, anything like rack pulls, or I use a hand dynamometer, and this not only allows me to train my grip, but also measure how much force I'm able to generate. And this is something very interesting because apparently looking at your grip strength is a very useful correlate for your general central nervous system recovery. So if you have a very weak grip in the morning, it might suggest that you have a bad cortisol to testosterone ratio. Some athletes and some trainers will use that as a cue to say, don't train that day. You're not feeling your best, you're likely to injure yourself. So this again demonstrates just how key grip strength is to overall strength. And of course, that's also why it's so important that you be careful with this, that you introduce this kind of training slowly, because not only is there the risk of acute injury, but you can also fatigue yourself, overtrain yourself, wear out your nervous system, and that's when you start to see detrimental effects in other areas of your training, which is not what we want. So instead of doing dead hangs to failure multiple times in each workout, go to 50%, 70% at the end of your regular pull-up workout. Like I say, maybe once every other week. Do wrist curls at the start of your lats training or your biceps training to just involve your forearms more. Try going up on your fingers the next time you do press-ups, etc. Be gentle with it, be sensible, and build it up that way. So there you go, that's how you build awesome grip strength, awesome big forearms, so that you can climb, so that you can fight, so that all of your lifts become better. If you found this video useful and interesting, then please leave a like, please comment down below, let me know what you think. If I've missed anything out, please share it around, it helps me immensely. And subscribe to the channel, of course, if you want to see more like this. I've got lots more on the way. Next week I'm going to be covering the next part of my flow states video. There's more videos coming on fitness, on bodybuilding, on productivity, working online, brain training, nootropics, all that stuff. So if that sounds good, then thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.